Hi, welcome to the Rio Knits Knitting Podcast. My name is Rhiannon. I'm your host. I live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin with my wife and cat. And today I am bringing you a finished object, a yarn review, a work in progress, an acquisition, and a very special unboxing. So without further ado, let's dive right in. Most of the content about today's finished object is going to be from a video I recorded back in November. So I recorded an entire episode worth of footage in November. And, just to give you like some insight into how that works, it would, I would say that I end up keeping anywhere from 65 to 75% of the footage I record because I say a lot, I say like, and there you go. There are often long pauses while I'm thinking of what to say next. I do have notes that I go by, but of course I have to stop and look at them. And then what I end up doing is cutting that out. So I have a podcast worth of footage from November I've been sitting on and not releasing because it just wasn't. It was too long and I never really got around to editing it, and I'm not sure how I feel about all of it. But I want to use some of that footage because one thing I really did like is that I did a pretty thorough review of the pattern and I did a review of the yarn itself. So I will be sharing that, but first I will just tell you the pattern is the Kerr sweater by Rebecca Clow. Here it is. I will insert pictures of me. I had posted these on Instagram about a month ago, maybe. So I knit this in just under 2 months, which is pretty standard for me. And it's a sport weight sweater. So, not as fast as, if I was doing a worsted or Aran weight sweater or something like that. I will insert that footage now. This is the pattern that I fell in love with. The first time I saw it, I said, give me that, give it to me. I loved it so much. I mean, it is just a really, really beautiful pattern and it's so versatile. And the first thing I saw when I looked at it with like this color work was like Western wear. And I was like, that is some Western wear. That looks like, Southwestern United States, Western Mexico kind of designs, and I'm here for it. This is where my ancestry is from, some of my ancestry. This is also just like I grew up in, the Southwestern US. I grew up in California, but like very much I think part of that, that aesthetic, I guess. It's in my blood and it's in my like earliest memories, I feel like, yeah, I don't know, just, I'm here for it. But I just like loved this color work from the beginning and was like, it needs to be more than one color, obviously. And then it's funny because someone else saw it and was like, oh yeah, it's like a nice wintry pattern. And I'm like, I guess I can see that it's like wintry if you did different colors. Like if you did this in like blue and silver, you'd have like peak Hanukkah jumper, right? Like it's like, yeah, you could totally make a winter wonderland kind of sweater out of this pattern. So anyways, this is what I have so far. Oh my gosh. And this is like 2.5 weeks of knitting, you guys. I'm a little obsessed. Okay. I'm really enjoying it. I blazed through the color work. Okay, so this pattern is a sport weight sweater. It has a drop shoulder. I think it uses short row shaping for a sleeve cap, so it's kind of a modified drop shoulder. It has a really interesting shoulder join, which is that the shoulder join is really on the back of the shoulder, I guess, not right on top. Whereas a lot of sweaters like the seam here really is almost like right on top of the shoulder, like, right on that ridge. This one, I think it falls back a little more. pros and cons of this pattern. Like I said, from the minute I first saw it, I was in love and I thought it was beautiful, and I still think it's beautiful, and I think it's a pattern that deserves to be made by many people in a lot of different colors, okay? It's really pretty, and I think it looks good on everyone. So that is an achievement right there. But I think I'll just like say some of the things that I don't love about the pattern first, and then I'll share some more like positives. Okay. So one thing I didn't like is that on the back, it doesn't use short row shaping. You have increases happening instead. I don't want to give away too much about how the pattern is written, or like give away too much, but essentially with the top down drop shoulder construction, you're knitting like a back piece where the neck is higher than the shoulders, and then you're picking up and knitting the front pieces. That's how this sweater is constructed, and this sweater uses short row shaping to like raise the back neck, and the Kerr uses increases, which means that the piece of fabric you're knitting gets wider as you're going. Instead of just using, casting on the full width and then doing short rows to raise it, you're actually widening the fabric for a while and then knitting down. And I just think that makes the picking up of stitches a little harder, because when you're adding extra stitches on, you're using like, say a backwards loop cast on or something. It's just like not as neat, I don't think. It's yeah, and it just feels like a less elegant solution, right? Like, yeah, I think I'm a fan of the short row shaping. There are some errors in like syntax and maybe like grammar that just kind of, I don't know. I mean, it's not a huge deal, but it was just kind of annoying. I think like, for someone who has published that many designs and is like obviously like making a genuine, go at being a knitwear designer, just like having some, beyond the tech editing, just having some like copy editing would be nice. One thing that I think is probably the most frustrating to me is that there's a technique being used at one point, and it doesn't describe the technique in the pattern. It just says, click the link to look at the video, right? So I thought, okay, it's going to take me to YouTube and it's going to be the pattern writer showing me, but it seems like it just takes you to someone else's Instagram showing a technique, which, okay, what if that other person decides to take their tutorial down? Now you're relying on another person to make your pattern work. That really bothered me, because it just felt like, it felt like maybe there was a rush to publish the pattern before just like either do the video tutorial or describe the technique. It also wasn't like you needed to do this technique. I'm not really sure like why it felt so imperative that you pick up stitches a certain way, but that really, it just bugged me, because if that person just decides that they don't want their tutorial online anymore, then the people who have purchased your pattern are just like, okay, I'm gonna have to go and find this, which is like okay, but like it's like you're giving a false impression that you're providing a tutorial and you're not. So for now, I guess that works and that's fine. But yeah, I hope that in the future that portion of the pattern gets fixed so that there's some kind of permanent, like ongoing guaranteed answer for knitters. And then another thing that sort of, I think, kind of bothered me, but I have seen this in a lot of patterns, is that there were not enough schematic measurements. And I think I've just become spoiled with some of the patterns that I've knit recently, that I get a measurement of, not just the bust circumference and the length of the garment, but like the bicep measurement and like the, shoulder to shoulder measurement, or the neck opening measurement, the measurement of, you know, how far the sleeve is, you know, from like basically pickup to cuff or whatever. Like, I think those are really nice to have, because if you know what the bicep measurement is and your, you know, bicep is larger or smaller, like, you know, you want to be able to make those adjustments. So yeah, those are my gripes. Okay. But let's talk about like the pros. Okay. It's a drop shoulder sweater, but it's top down. I think there's so many drop shoulder sweaters that for whatever reason are bottom up, and I don't really know why. I don't think it's any easier to knit. I think getting the length of the sweater right and the fit right is a lot harder when it's bottom up. I think top down is maybe more complicated for the designer, but for the end user, top down is always, I think, a better fit. Again, can we talk about this beautiful and versatile color work? I think not only is the chart itself, like, you know, the color work pattern itself beautiful, but I think the placement of it is absolutely stunning. It, rather than have a yoke or something around the bottom, it is hitting like mid chest, and then it's going down to like, you know, just below the waist. So you have this sort of like band of color work, and it goes around each sleeve as well. And I think that's just so classy and so cool. It's unusual. I haven't seen a lot of patterns that do that. So I'm a huge fan of that. And I think, yeah, it's just so nice. You know, it really looks good. And I think that if you wanted to expand this and have more color work or less color work, you could. Also, there are two options. There's a narrow band and there's a wide band. So I'm doing the wide band, which is, like I said, like mid chest down to like mid waistline or whatever. But you could do like a narrower strip of the color work too. So that's another option. And the sweater does give you two kind of length options, which I think is also really cool. And then finally, I think one thing that was really cool about the pattern, and that I don't see in every pattern, is that the charts were provided two ways. So there's a chart that shows your contrast color as the dark color, the darker color. So if you're doing like, you know, dark on a light background color work, but then there's a second version of the chart, which is like if you were knitting a lighter color on a darker background. That is just like a little thing, but again, I think for the end user, that's one of those things that can make such a difference, because it can be really hard to look at a chart and associate in your mind, like, okay, you know, my yellow yarn is the black on this chart and my blue yarn is the gray on this chart. You know, it's hard to like just keep that association. So having that kind of dark on light or light on dark version of the chart, it's a little extra something that a designer can add that I think is just really nice. So coming back to this in February of 2024, I want to share kind of some updates on it. So obviously the sweater is completed. That's one big update. Also, I learned that this pattern, unlike most of Rebecca Clow's patterns, was not tech edited. So I think it was maybe her first sweater pattern. That's why maybe some of the issues that I had with the pattern, you know, are present. And I totally understand that. She seems to be somebody who works full time and then designs quite a lot. So I get it. Like, we're all busy. Maybe she'll circle back and fix some of the things with the pattern. Maybe not. But, you know, I get it. It's still a very usable pattern. I enjoyed knitting it for the most part. The sleeves were a doozy because they just were. I also learned that this style of shoulder and sleeve cap construction is just not for me. It's not something I like. the back neck ended up being too high for me, which is fine because my hair kind of covers it, and if I wore a scarf that would cover it. It's not a major issue. It just does sort of bunch up back there. I've got like fabric bunching up. I think that it's a really comfortable sweater, which is sort of the main thing. I'm very comfortable in it. It's a nice length, and I didn't really modify the length at all. I went with what the pattern said, and it's a really nice length to wear both with skirts and with jeans. Somehow it hits right in that middle without that being weird. Because I think I mentioned before, I wear like skirts tend to have a really high waistband and then a lot of volume at the hips. So if you had like a pencil skirt, it wouldn't be as much of an issue, but for, you know, a gathered skirt, you don't want to have like your sweater pushing down on that fabric that's, you know, sort of meant to poof out, flare out. I've been wearing it quite a lot. I do think that it goes ever so slightly out of my comfort zone being a neutral red rather than a very obviously cool red that leans pink, but you know what, I do get a lot of compliments. So I think I just need to embrace that not everything in my color palette is going to be something that I have worn before, or that I'm necessarily gravitating towards, but that there are a lot of colors that suit me well, that I like well enough, and when they're combined with different things, they really shine. So for example, this sweater with jeans, just chef's kiss, like so good. And I feel like I need a denim skirt for it, to be honest, because I'd like to wear it with a skirt more. And I think there's just enough contrast there for the bright red, and then, you know, to wear something very basic like a pair of jeans or a denim skirt. I will just add too that the sleeve cuffs are wider than what I usually do, and I am pleasantly surprised with how much I enjoy having just a wider sleeve, because I am a sleeve pusher upper, and I often make things with shorter or like 3/4 length sleeves. Like I made this sweater with like 3/4 sleeves because, you know, I work with my hands. I'm knitting and I'm, you know, cooking and things like that. So I really need my sleeves to be out of the way. I had a lot of yarn left over, so I think I bought what was recommended in the pattern, and I have a whole ball of this plus a half. And then for the black yarn, I barely cracked into the second cake of it. Was it the black or was it the blue? One of those I had got 2 balls of, and I barely used the second one. And then the other one I only had 1 of, and I have half of it left. So yeah, so I've got a lot of leftovers. I am starting to save little bits of leftovers. I'll just show you. This is how I do that, because I've thought about setting aside leftovers from every project for future repairs. Getting to the point now with my most worn sweater, the Weekender Light, that I have worn it so much, and I've worn it for like hiking and stuff, so it was getting a little bit busted in some areas. And I think I want to just like set aside a little bit of my leftovers every time I finish a larger garment, just so I can come back and repair it later. I think that, you know, if I have this much left over, I'm for sure gonna use this in something else, but just having that bit set aside, I think will be useful. And I cut up a tissue box, so this is just some random, you know, household cardboard, and I just wound off some of each color. Goes into the bag. There you go. Okay, finally, I want to talk to you and kind of give up my review about this yarn, which is Cautiva by Wooldreamers. Okay, here it is. This is what it looks like. This is the colorway C 0.652. So this is the red that I'm using. One thing I noticed right away with these colors is that this is like a true neutral. I don't know if you can tell, but I have a lot of issues with colors like red, yellow, brown. I mean, I don't really use yellow, but you know, reds, browns. I need a cool tone, like usually a cool tone. If it's too like orangey of a pink or a red, it doesn't look good on me, but this is like a true neutral red. I have held it up to many other reds that, you know, red things in my life, like these flowers or whatever, and compared it, and I've held it up to, you know, my skin and like other people and been like, oh, look at this color, and it's just like a really true neutral. And I think that's true of all of the colors that they have. So even this blue is like, you know, you might think blue is always cool and red is always warm, but these are like really neutral in their undertones, and they do have different color undertones. So I think it's a blend of fibers that are naturally different colors. Okay, I'm going to tell you a little bit about this yarn. Okay, so this is kind of like from the website. Wooldreamers founder Ramon Cobo wanted to create a sustainable, traceable yarn that benefited local sheep and local producers. He created Wooldreamers with that in mind. So the website has a lot of info on the wool and the factory. Their first sort of, I think I mentioned their first, you know, popular in the US yarn that I heard of was the Manchelopi. So this is the Manchega sheep. It's a native breed to Spain. It's what Manchego cheese is made out of, which is like one of the best cheeses ever. This, however, is a blend of Spanish Merino and Manchega wools. So the Mota is the DK to light worsted version of this, I guess, and Cautiva is the sport-ish version of it. So you get 186 yards or 170 meters per 50 grams. The yarn itself has 2 plies. I would describe it as a felty soft, spongy, a little bit lofty, but the words that come to mind for me are like spongy soft. So do with that what you will. It has a lot of vegetable matter in it. This sweater is like 5% hay and grass. Okay, like if I hold up, and I have been picking out the bigger pieces as I come to them, but maybe you can't see it, but I mean, I feel like there is so much like hay and grass in here, and I just hope it's gonna come out in the wash, because I don't know, I don't have time or energy to like take tweezers and pull out all the little bits that are in here. But if you look at the yarn up close, you can see that there's like lots of veg matter in it. That could be a deterrent for some people. For me, it is not, because it's not like sharp thistles or anything, and it's not like, I mean, so some of the bigger pieces, like I can pick out, I don't know if you can even see that, but you know, like you can pick out some of the bigger bits of grass. But yeah, just an FYI. So yeah, so it is 100% wool. It's all local wool from Spain, so local to Spain, which, you know, it's not that big of a country, you know, it's, so this wool mostly didn't travel super far from the farm to the mill, if that matters to you. The put up is this sort of ball that you can just knit straight from. I cannot tell you how much I love the put up of this yarn. This is by far, I think, the best ball of yarn. So like a lot of yarn comes in like hanks, which is that sort of long, and then it's twisted up and folded in half, you know, like what you see, like your superwash sock yarns coming in, or just like a lot of yarn comes in that. There's a few that come in this sort of put up that I've seen. I know like Knitting for Olive, a lot of brands, their mohair is put up in this sort of way, but there's something about this, whatever they're doing, is that at no point do you get like a sad floppy piece. And I'll show you, like, this is, I have knit down quite a bit on this one, and it's still like the yarn just rolls off of there really easy, right? Like I'm not having any trouble with it. And so like when I have those, you know, like fingering weight Jamisons or something, the kind of yarns that you think of for like color work, when I have those, I will kind of plump them up and, you know, try to just use it right off the ball. But I often end up caking those just because I don't like the way that, like, to pull from one end of the yarn, it's like this thing is going blah, 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 right? Like it's just flopping around. This is probably not making any sense unless you've used that kind of yarn. But you know, maybe I'll have to show you that too. For the purposes of being able to compare and contrast, I'm pulling out some other yarns. So this is your standard hank of yarn, right? Like it is basically wound into a long cylinder and then twisted up and you know, folded in half and one end through the other. So this is your hank of yarn. Some people call it a skein. I think technically it's a hank in this format, right? That's one format. The other format is, you know, these, I don't know if this is called a skein, but basically it's like a little cylinder of yarn, right? And so it is similar to this in that you can knit right off of it. But what I usually do with these is I sort of push the ends to try to make it more round ball-like, so that when I'm pulling the yarn, because I pull from the outside, because I don't want chaos, it will sort of roll off more easily, right? And that's totally cool. But with a lot of those, what you see is that as you get farther along and you've got that, you know, you're pulling from the outside, it just starts to get really floppy and saggy. And so when you've got your yarn set down, you can see it's not rolling off, right? It's like it's going to flop end to end as you pull the yarn. Now, this is something that some people do not give a rip about, and more power to you. I find that annoying, and that's why I'm a huge fan of the way this is put up, because even when you get down to the inside, it's still pretty densely wound and it's still pretty round, and you're going to have yarn that rolls off smoothly, right? Like, see that ball's like barely even gonna jump out of my hand, right? The other one was about to flop right off onto the floor. I had to work a lot harder to keep it from flopping. So anyways, great job on the put up of this yarn. Yeah, the other thing is that it has a very wide gauge range. So the actual strand here, maybe I'll pull this off. The actual strand here is, you know, comparable, I would say, to, so this is this is fingering weight. Comparable to a fingering weight, but you can see that it is wider, right? I hope you can see that. Let's see if I can hold that up. It's wider than a fingering weight. It's a sport weight. But then when you put that up next to like a worsted weight of a similar spin, it's not that far off. I would say it's dead center of the other two, right? Like it's sort of that sport. So you could knit this at like a DK weight gauge. Like you could do, I think, up to like 20 stitches over 4 inches without it looking bad. And because of the way that it's structured, it's going to work. It's going to like floof out and fill the space if you're doing a looser gauge. And it's going to scrunch up nicely for a tighter gauge. So this is a 22 stitches over 4 inches. So it's 5.5 stitches per inch. And it's working beautifully. I think this yarn is great for color work. I have never knit color work with yarn that wasn't intended for color work or woolen spun. So this is my first time with, like, I'm pretty sure this is worsted spun. Okay, I want to talk to you about the Gell sweater. So this sweater has been on my to make list forever, since it came out, and I think it launched in 2021 or 2022, but it was the Harrisville Day for Night collection. Sarah Solomon designed everything in it, and they, I think, were doing, either had just launched daylights or we're doing sort of like a push, and they wanted to have a collection that combined the colors of nightshades with the daylight. So if you're not familiar with these two yarns, I will just show it to you. This is the daylights. Basically it's like white wool with little flecks of color wool mixed in. So it's not a tweed, but it has like a slight hint of brown, which is probably the hardest one to see. But the Nightshades collection has even more colors, and they're black, like naturally black wool with little flecks of, you know, blue or green or whatever. I knit a sweater a year and a half ago out of the Nightshades, and I love it. I think of all the fabrics I've worn from knitted garments, it has the most, what do I want to, like, it has the broadest spectrum of weather in which it is comfortable. So, you know, wool kind of naturally helps you regulate your temperature, and you can wear wool, you know, pretty much in a variety of weather. Some people say you can wear it in the summer. I think that is pushing it personally. But you can wear a wool sweater in weather that, you know, is very cold, or, you know, not just a little cool, and basically it will keep you warm enough without overheating within a certain range of temperatures. So of all the knitted objects I've ever made and then worn, I would say the Nightshades was doing the absolute best job of keeping me comfortable in that like weather spectrum. So just a fun factoid that you can have, I guess. But I knew from the minute I saw this pattern that I wanted it, and I wanted it in the daylights, which was, you know, what it was originally knit with. And I wanted it in the Caffeine colorway, because I thought, oh, it's just like the classic beige sweater. And I know it's such a joke now to you know, make jokes about knitters and their beige sweaters and their basic beige sweaters, but you know what? Everybody needs one. I think everyone needs one. There's a reason that basic beige sweaters are popular, and I think most people look good in them. And I do find that the basics I knit are the things that I reach for a lot. Just a thought. And you know, I would include like this as a basic because it's only 2 colors, and one of the colors is a neutral, and so it's not out there, right? I love the daylights. However, just the batch I got, I guess, is very smelly. Every time I'm knitting this, it is like a barn indoors. Like, I don't know, it's like a herd of sheep just came into my living room. And I know people like that sheepy smell, but this is a bit much. So I cannot wait to wash and block this. Let me show you what I have so far. This sweater is knit in pieces and seamed, which that will be a first for me. I've never knit, gosh, I can't put that down. I've never knit a sweater in pieces and then seamed it together, but I have heard from so many people that that really stabilizes it, which makes sense, right? Having a seam kind of stabilizes it and you don't get as much stretch and growth and everything. So let's start with admiring. This is the back panel, the beautiful tubular cast on. Of the two methods of doing a tubular cast on, this is the one I prefer, which is where you start with a piece of waste yarn and then you are building off of that and eventually you just pull that out. I find that so much easier than the method where you, you know, you're basically wrapping the yarn around the needle one way and then the other. You know, it's very similar. That method is very similar to like the Judy's Invisible Toe cast on or whatever, except for that you're doing one needle instead of two. Because if you think about it, you're doing knits and purls, which is what you would be doing for Judy's Magic cast on, right? Only in that case, you want all the purls on one side to go that way and then all the knits anyway. That tubular cast on I find is harder to do and it's really hard to make it look good. So you do a tubular cast on, you do a whole bunch of ribbing, and then you're just doing this beautiful textured stitch pattern all the way up. This is not, I'm sorry y'all. I know I am not a professional podcaster, don't worry. I'm not pretending to be, but I wish you could see this. It's very long. This is just a very long panel because it's a very long tunic kind of sweater. I'm a little worried about the depth of the armholes, but I'm going with what the pattern says and I'm trusting the process. I'm getting better at trusting the process with knitting and not just trying to modify things for no reason. But yeah, I have, so that is, you know, 50% of the body done, which is probably 25%, 30% of the whole garment maybe. And then I have done I would say 2/3 of the front panel. So same thing, only you do a little less ribbing and you end up, it's a little shorter in the front. Let me tell you, doing one less inch of ribbing just felt like a luxury. So I've just got to the point where I've, you know, bound off a few stitches for the underarm and I'm going to start that raglan shaping now. It's going to be a nice long sweater. And I will say I do like the process of knitting in pieces. I wondered if I would like it for a really long time, and I used to think it would be, you know, frustrating to feel like you finished a piece and then you weren't even finished. Kind of like that second sock syndrome thing, you know, where you knit one sock or you knit one glove and then you're like, oh God, now I have to do another. But I actually really like this because at no point is the thing that you're knitting on super heavy. So it is a little bit of that like shawl knitting experience where it's just like one flat piece. And then knowing that the sleeves are also going to be flat somehow makes them seem less onerous because when I knit a sleeve often from like a top-down sweater, there's that beginning of the sleeve where you've sort of got the body flopping around, right? And even if you put the body stitches on hold and do the sleeves first, you still have just kind of that awkward thing where you're doing a small circumference in the round, but it's attached to this other big piece of fabric. Yeah, so I'm really enjoying the process and I'm excited to have this sweater. Now I want to share with you a special preview, I guess, of a design that I'm going to be releasing hopefully at some point in February. it is being test knit, which is really exciting. I've got a few people test knitting and I have to do more editing. I've found a tech editor and I believe I'm going to have this tech edited because it turns out that's not as expensive as I thought it was. And I just think it's worth it, you know, to really make a pattern good. But this is my first ever sock pattern. So this is the alfajor sock. And if you are one, Mexican, and two, a person with a sweet tooth, you know what this is based off of. But essentially it's the alfajor de coco, which is not the same as the Portuguese cookie, but it's like a little bar of coconut that has a hot pink edge. I don't know why it has a hot pink edge, but it's just a classic. Sometimes you see them in green, white, and red, like the flag, but generally I see it white with a pink edge. So here is the sock. The design is really just based on that. So you've got this kind of pink edge on every part of it, right? You don't have like a large toe of that color. And then you have an all over textured pattern that mimics sort of like little coconuts. So, you know, I have a lot of qualms, I guess, about releasing a sock pattern, because once you start knitting socks, you realize all socks are just the same thing. But then when I think about it, that's true of sweaters, that's true of shawls, you know, like there's only so many shapes in the universe of knitting, and everyone's just like adding a pattern to that shape or whatever. So people are out there publishing top-down raglans with no design features. I do not need to feel bad about publishing a sock pattern. But, you know, in order to sort of make it extra special, I guess, I tried to add more sizes, which the stitch pattern doesn't work with all sizes in even increments. I guess, what am I trying to say? The sizes are not all exactly, you know, 4 stitches apart or whatever, 8 stitches apart, but I have basically a modified version of the stitch pattern that works for 2 sizes, and then the regular stitch pattern that works for 3 sizes. So there will be 5 total sizes. And if you are used to knitting socks and you know, like, oh, I can go up a needle size and get this and it still creates a good fabric, then you know that could, you know, that gives you some room to play. I also did a left toe, right toe shaping because I think a lot of people like that. I like that a lot. I'll probably never do anything different for, you know, socks for my spouse, because their feet are very, like their baby toes are significantly shorter than their longer toes. And so if you have feet that have more of that curve, it's nice to have, you know, toes that are shaped left and right. So you can kind of see that here, that it's slanting that way. So here's your big toe, you know, here's your pinky toe, probably ends somewhere around here. And this is unblocked, so it you know, the stitch pattern isn't quite what it will be, but it has a slip stitch heel flap and gusset, because that's what I think is the best way to do a heel. And I tried to really put a lot of thought into this pattern. So be on the lookout for the alfajor socks. And if you are an all a sock knitter, or if you love a sock knitter and want to give them a gift, I hope you want to purchase this. So more to come on that, I guess. So I don't usually do acquisitions because I don't usually do acquisitions. I'll leave it at that. But I did want to share with you a couple of acquisitions because they're pretty special and I'm pretty stoked about it. So the first is that I got my hands on a paper copy of this Pompom, which is issue 46. It's one of the last publications in print. And I remember when I first saw this, it was the Chinook Winds pattern that just like blew my mind of just what a gorgeous sweater. I'll show you the pictures of it. But this publication is special to me because one, you know, I love me some Western wear, and I love knitting patterns that kind of seem a little Western-ish. So like even this like otra, I pretend that it's the Spanish otra, otra, not otra or whatever. But you know, I love me some Western wear. I love that this is curated by Candace English and features you know, what appear to be indigenous models, and they have a whole vibe. It's a whole vibe, and I love it. And there's several patterns in here that I really like. And I just was thinking about how much Pompom magazine has meant to me, and how I feel pretty stupid that I didn't realize it and appreciate it and support it as enough before. Because there are few knitting publications like it, period. But Pompom has also been very intentional about their aesthetic and the way that they curate collections, that it feels young in a way that other publications don't necessarily feel young. And nothing against things that aren't young, but it's different. You know, it's very different in the knitting world to see something that is very, you know, I would say intentionally and almost aggressively catering to sort of a younger aesthetic and a more stylish and youthful kind of aesthetic. I think part of that too is that there's a political slant to Pompom that isn't stated, but it's so obvious, you know? So like in the United States, young people are not majority white. And so it's a publication that has always featured people of color. I mean, as far as I've been aware of it, it's featured people of color, people of different abilities, people of different genders, you know, and so that is part of the youthfulness of it, is that I think it represents this kind of newer generation and newer ways of thinking that are, you know, certainly people of all generations are holding these newer ways of thinking, but it has an avant-garde quality that isn't overly academic or overly self-conscious, I guess. And you know, I think that they've done things like, you know, like featuring more designers of color and more of the kind of aesthetics that I think are, you know, feel familiar to me as a Latina, and, you know, as somebody of mixed descent. Like, I think there's just something about Pompom that just feels a little more welcoming, inviting, familiar. You know, it's all of it. And I know that, you know, one of the founders of Pompom is herself a Latina, and so I think that is a big part of it, is that that's just always been baked in. But I really appreciate what this magazine has been, and I'm really mourning it going away, because there is something really nice about having it in print, isn't there? You know, something that is in print, that is like tangible, that you can, you know, flip through. I don't always knit all the patterns from the knitting books I have, but I flip through them a lot and get inspiration. And I think, you know, color inspiration and textures and different things like that. And I, you know, I just feel like there's such a, it's such a loss that there won't be a Pompom physical print magazine anymore. Oh, something else that they do that I always thought was really great is that they really feature knitting and crochet, which for some reason not a lot of publications do. It's very one or the other. And you know, even like what is it? Even Knit Picks has like a different name that it goes by for crochet people, which just like blows my mind because it's the same products and it's the same company. But yeah, I will just show you some of the patterns in here that I really love. So I think these socks are pretty darn cute. I think, like I said, the Chinook ones like blew my mind. It's so extra, and it's the kind of thing that I would have worn this when I was 4 years old. You know what I mean? I used to have this like pink straw cowboy hat when I was 4, and I felt so freaking cool in that. And this just like, it's the fringe and the baubles and everything. Like it just feels like dramatic in the best way. And when you look at it up close, it almost looks crocheted, you know, because of the way that there's like large eyelets. I love that. The golden grass shawl is just all over textures. Again, something you could do in a neutral, but you could totally do this in like a, you know, a beautiful blue or something. I quite like the Drover pullover. I think this is a nice, you know, this is kind of my vibe of stranded colorwork, you know. And I kind of love the colors that it's in. And then finally there's that one. I mean, I think the bunkhouse is cute, but this one I probably wouldn't wear. It's just not really my style, I think. Yeah. The Prairie Skies, which has crochet granny squares in it, but like when I say I like crochet, it hurts my heart that people have this association of crochet as like, it has to be like clown barf, like 85 mismatched colors and look crazy, because that looks really 70s to me in a way I don't like. And then also, I think crochet can be very elegant. It can be very, you know, understated as well. And this is how I'm so glad that somebody's like showing off what it can be, because I think crochet, it gets a bad rap, you know, sometimes among knitters. These mittens actually look like they'd be hella comfortable too, so I might knit those. Yeah, everything in this book is great. I am very excited to have it. The other thing I'm really stoked about is because I just finished knitting the Kerr sweater with the Wooldreamers Cautiva. This is Wooldreamers Dehesa de Pereira. But this color is like a lime popsicle. It's such a pale green, but I think you can really see in this light that it's green, and when it's next to something green, you really see that like glowing green color. And I just, from the minute I saw this, was like, hold the phone. Like, this is incredible. I've never seen a color like this. And I'm gonna make a second sweater hug, because that is probably going to be like my one pattern to rule them all forever. I'm a huge Skandir Knits fan, okay? Like, I'm gonna just come out and say it. Like, she designs things that fit me really well, that match my aesthetic, that are versatile enough that you can really make them look a lot of different ways. Yeah, I'm gonna do another sweater hug out of this, and I think I want to do some kind of design on the sleeve, maybe some, thought about seed stitch or baubles or something, because well, one, I was kind of inspired by the patterning on that, but that sweater isn't quite it for me. And I really like how on the flax there is that garter stitch panel. So I don't know, I'm gonna maybe just like modify that pattern a little bit to give it a little something something with texture, but overall that it's like my all-time favorite pattern now. So I'm very excited to have got this, and I got it for 50% off, and it made me want to cry because I was like, for under $50, I have a sweater quantity of this yarn that is like so precious. Yeah, it's 100% merino from Spain, and so these are the really old original merino flocks. There's a whole story on it. You know, Wooldreamers has a lot of storytelling as part of their product. It reminds me a bit of like Harrisville and Brooklyn tweed, but you know, because of the amount of information they have about their product. And that I really like that. I really like that. I like knowing where things came from. I mean, I'm not as bad as like the Portlandia sketch where they want to like visit the farm where the chicken came from, but like I do like knowing the story behind a product. You know, what did it take for this yarn to get into my hands? And like, that just makes it more valuable to me. So anyway, there is my new acquisition. So finally, I wanted to do an unboxing, and I've never done, I won't say never. I don't think I've done an unboxing before on this channel, but what I'm unboxing is going to be a surprise to me. I got a big box of fabric to go through from my friend whose grandmother unfortunately passed away, but who left behind a lot of stuff. Throughout my crafting life, deaths of elders has often been a way that I've acquired things, and I hope that someday when I go, some lucky crafter will get to go through my stuff, and it will be freely given, because I think that's just so awesome. So I have no idea what's in this box. It's a really large box. The box is labeled. I'm not sure if the label is accurate, but it says like costumes, sweater knits, and other knits or something. So I think maybe it has knit fabrics in it. Couldn't be sure, but I'm unboxing it with the sort of intention that if I find something that I will use, I will take it. If I don't, I'm going to help my friend find a home among other quilters or garment sewists or whoever. So what I'm specifically looking for is, you know, any little scraps of blue cottons, because I really have wanted to make more cloth napkins, and I really want to make a bunting now for some reason. I saw one somewhere and I just got in my head like, what a fun little sewing project that would be, to have a little bunting, and then I could like bust it out at birthdays or whatever. I don't know, who am I? But that's something I'm looking for, and I can always use little scraps of blue in a quilt, or you know, sometimes yellows and oranges are hard to find for quilts if you want to have rainbow colors, and I can always find a green or a red or a pink or a purple or a blue fabric that I like. Yellows and oranges are a little harder, so that would be cool to find. And any kind of bigger yardage, so like 2-3 yards of something, because I have been just looking around and buying more like secondhand fabric, vintage fabric, etc. Because when you are first trying out a new sewing pattern, like a garment sewing pattern, it's really nice to be able to make a mock-up of it out of something that cost you like $10 or less. So I have made, you know, I have made like a mock-up of a dress recently out of a fabric I got for $5. And, you know, I didn't do like the facings and stuff because I was like, I'm just trying to see how it fits and if I need to adjust the length of it or whatever. But it's really, you know, I think it's very cost effective and it's a good use of older fabric. And if, you know, if it ends up working and, you know, I want to hang on to that mock-up, I can. If not, like, because I'm a quilter, every little bit of cotton will eventually get downcycled into something. And I've got all kinds of like little pieces, you know, I sort my pieces by size. So maybe I will find something that I can use out of this box of fabric, and maybe I won't. So let's find out. So here is the big box of fabric. As you can see, it is labeled. I'm not sure if this label is, you know, what's currently in there or maybe what was in there in the past before. I'm gonna sit in my little rocking chair and enjoy opening this up and finding out. You can see I already ripped off one tab on accident, just trying to get this in the house. So, all right, first thing that I see looks like a lot of yardage of a black fabric. I have no idea what the fiber content is. I'm guessing it's a synthetic or like a wool blend. It is a knit. It's got some stretch to it, but it's a pretty good quantity, so that's exciting. Okay, what's next is this blue stripe, and it has this little I don't know, detail. What do you call that? It kind of looks like it would be either a shirt, like a button-up shirt, or it would be curtains. So I'm not like super experienced with fabric in the sense of I don't know just by looking what the fiber content is per se. I can tell you if it's like wool versus cotton, but it might be a wool blend, you know, with something synthetic or not. I really don't know. So far, this doesn't really look like it's quilting fabric, which is what I think my friend thought she was giving me, but that's okay. This also looks like a shirting type fabric, or, I mean, it's pretty sheer. I wonder if this would be used for a curtain, like if you just want to have like a nice sheer curtain or something. I don't know. This looks like a wool. Wow, this is a lot of whatever it is. It's either a wool or a wool blend. So this is quite nice. I think it's a woven, not a knit. I'm just guessing. If you will. I'm trying to zoom in. That very much looks like a woven to me. Now I'm questioning myself. Basically, when you really look at a fabric closely, a lot of times you can see knit stitches, or you see like a crosshatch pattern, and that's how you know it's a woven. I'm 99% sure this is a woven, and it looks like it's a wool that's like maybe for like a skirt, because it's not super thick and it has like a bit of like drapiness to it. So wow. Okay, this is a strange color. It looks more lavender on camera, but it is very much like a terracotta rose clay kind of color. So already I feel like my hand is very similar to this color. It's a nice color as is, but I would never wear anything in this color because it will just look like I'm naked or something, or like naked but like a little sunburn maybe. I think it says it has 3 yards. I'm guessing that said 3 yards. So there is good yardage here. I have a friend who sews and quilts who I bet would love this, and this also seems like a really nice, like maybe a wool blend. I'm guessing by the amount of fraying that it's not 100% wool. I think wool doesn't fray quite as much. There is some faux fur in here, and I love that. Like, you could just put the little edge on a coat or something if you wanted. Wow, you could make yourself a little faux fur purse. Wow, this is a fun knit. Okay, this would make like an awesome dress. What do you think? It's a little rainbowy for me. It's got some sparkle in it though. Pretty sweet. Okay. I really hope like clothes moths don't fly out of here, because I also don't know if this has been like in grandma's attic for years or whatever, but there's like, I don't know. There's something in there. There's just like lots of lint, it looks like. Okay, so this is a knit fabric, almost like a t-shirt fabric, maybe. That's what that feels like. Here's another one that just has a little bit of a pattern to it. Like, yeah, you can see there's like a ton of lint in here. Okay, so we've got two kind of like white t-shirty fabrics. Gosh, I'm just throwing them on the ground. This is a black something. I'm gonna go with like a rayon or something because I think this might be rayon. This is a straight up sweater fabric, I think. You can see the knit stitches. So this is like a knit fabric. It feels very crepey. I don't know if that is an accurate use of that because I know crepe can mean something in fabric stuff, but yeah, I don't know. Here we've got more white. Oh my gosh, this reminds me of like something that would be a baby blanket from the 70s. Like it's got a weird, it's funny how certain fabrics remind me of the past. Like this reminds me of something that, like, I was not alive in the 70s, okay, but like it would have been in like my grandma's house or something and been from back when, and I would have known at the time that I saw it that it was like an older thing. Yeah, very, very interesting. This is just some black fabric. It feels more like a woven. Is it a twill? Is that a thing? Oh my gosh, no. The other side is like a velvet. What? Okay. This might actually be costume fabrics in here. So hilarious if my friend was like, here, can you use this for quilting? It's costume fabrics. This would make probably great tea towels if you could get all the like, I think the black fabrics are just fuzzing out quite a bit, but this would be lovely for tea towels. Yeah, that's quite a nice, that's nice. I might just make some tea towels. Should I just make tea towels for everyone I know? Here's some nice denim. All right, some denim. I don't know how much there is, but it's got the, it's definitely been cut into. I'm sorry, I'm terrible at filming. Let me maybe set this up with the tripod. So maybe this view is a little bit better. I can't quite get it to angle into the box without it just being, I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, here's another, I'm gonna say 1970s baby blanket kind of weird fabric. This actually, I could see this being like a sweater now that I'm looking at it more. It's definitely a knit. It is just a cream color. Yeah, I feel like you could do like, you know, a toaster sweater or something out of this. It wouldn't be terrible. It's probably not for me. I'm not gonna probably ever wear a white sweater. This is straight up glam, Golden Girls amazingness costume fabric. You probably can't tell, but it is like silver and sparkly. It's just sparkly silver knit fabric, and it's kind of sheer. So yeah, I feel like it would definitely be like in a stage play or some kind of costume. Yeah. Oh, okay. This this is like gold sparkly patterning on white. Also very costumey, but I can totally picture like a 1960s couch with this. maybe that would be a really funny cushion, like couch pillow. I don't know. Oh, here's some straight up green. Whew. Wow. So I absolutely loved my great grandma. I'm not kidding when I said she dressed like Ace Ventura. She always had a flowered shirt, not like a man's Hawaiian shirt, but like pretty close, right? Like the female equivalent or the feminine equivalent of that. And then some trousers of any color imaginable. And I can totally picture her with like this green of trousers. And oh my gosh, if they were like palazzo pants, that would just be nuts. This is a really fun fabric. I'm tempted, you guys. It's so weird. It's just so weird. It would be like wild to just show up, not telling anybody that I'm gonna do this, but show up to like a knit night or a happy hour in just like some funky green and like silver getup. Oh my gosh, I'm losing it. Okay, this is actually a fleece, or I'm sorry, a flannel. A flannel knit. Okay, yeah, this would be, what would you do? What flannel. I don't know. It's blue, it's checks. Let's see, you can see that pattern pretty well there. Okay, blue checks. Just start throwing them out there. Yeah, and then here's more of the same, but in a more turquoise or sky blue kind of color. I don't know what you would do with those, like those flannels. I wonder what costume she was making. All right, this one is 100% a like, yeah, wow. It's a waffle weave. It definitely has, a lot of these fabrics have that like, I would say the feeling of like synthetics from the 60s through the 80s. So there's a chance that they are blended with natural materials, but they feel a little scratchy, for lack of a better word. I don't think that washing them would change that. And no shade on anyone who enjoys synthetics, and I do think that it makes sense this box was labeled costumes, because for costumes, yeah, go for it. Sometimes it's more about the look that you're creating than the experience of wearing it, but for me, I find that when I wear synthetic fibers, I will just be like super sweaty and like it's gross, and I don't want to have, this would be like a really cute tennis dress, but like I would have 100% like pit stains. Like it just, me and like acrylic and polyesters do not mix well. Okay, this is a t-shirt fabric, cobalt blue, can't go wrong. It's a really nice royal blue, maybe not cobalt, but yeah, and it's just a nice t-shirt fabric. And actually, I bet this would make like a cool dress or pajamas. I don't know. Really nice. This is more of that, but in a really amazing fire engine red. T-shirt fabric. Okay. More t-shirt fabric. That's actually really nice. There's definitely several yards here because it's folded and folded and folded. Okay, there's some really cool trims here, like braided stuff. This looks almost like leopard print. There's like navy with gold. There's a silver, yeah, okay. Oh my gosh. We've got some military, oh my God, another piece of fur. Yeah, okay, that's synthetic, thank God. So please don't let there be a dead squirrel in here. I have dealt with enough dead squirrels this winter. If you know, you know. Yeah, okay, this is also a t-shirt material. it's a little lighter. It's really kind of thin and like definitely not as soft as the others, but for a costume, this would be amazing actually if anybody is doing like military costumes, because it would be, I think, pretty easy to work with, this fabric. I'm gonna throw some of these on the floor because they're really weighing down the edge of the box. Oh my God, it's blue velvet. It is blue velvet. You're shitting me. Do I need a coat in this or what? Oh my God. Yes. Yes. Oh, I could be a nutcracker, you guys. I could be a nutcracker. Just saying. I could have a, anyways, moving on. Okay, yeah, more of that like knit that's like, it could be a sweater, could be a blanket. It's blue. I don't know if it's like my shade of blue. This would actually be, I mean, this would be cute on somebody. I don't know. Again, I don't know if it's my shade. It's definitely got a lot of stretch and bounce to it. I'm sure it's a blend. It's a blend of synthetic and natural fibers. I said I wasn't confident about these things, and now I'm saying it very confidently. It feels like with that amount of stretch, there's some synthetics in there because it snaps back really well, but it also, it doesn't feel synthetic. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't feel like that nasty scratchy stuff. Yeah, and there's more of the same, and it's green. So I don't know, anybody want to sew a sweater? Here is a, oh, that's cute. If you like orange, then this is pretty cool. I'm not an orange person, but it's kind of an orange color, and I don't know how well it's showing through. It is giving a little bit of pink or tomato or salmon or something on screen, but it's very like pumpkin orange actually. And there's no light in this corner of the room, so sorry about that. This was the place where it made sense to film this. This definitely has a synthetic vibe, but it's got this like tweed. It's got like the neps, and the neps are mostly sky blue, white, and a very pale yellow. Like a butter yellow. So that's actually really cool looking. I wonder what that was used for. Right now it looks like a goldfish because there's, you know, obviously like cuts and stuff have been made, and I don't know, it's got this long tail. If you needed a goldfish costume, it would be pretty cool. All right. We've got a really nice white knit that feels like a nice t-shirt. A little heavier than your standard t-shirt, but pretty nice. I'll put that with those. Got a final amount of green something. I don't even know what this would be called. It feels kind of like velvet, and it has a very slight sheen, but it is like the lowest pile anything, and I think it's just maybe it's like a brushed cotton. That's what I'm thinking of, like when you get like a brushed cotton flannel, but it's a stretch, it's a knit. So that's what's in here. Oh, and you know, this little bit of fur. So yeah, well, that was my very unusual unboxing of random stuff. I think there are some treasures in here. I'm for sure, I'm like, this blue velvet it's something. I don't know what it's gonna be, but like if nothing else, like covering a pillow with this, like that would be very cute. I'm probably gonna use some of the like t-shirt-ish material because it feels nice. I don't know that I need to make t-shirts, but if I want to try out a t-shirt pattern, this is what I'm talking about. I got this for free, so I can try out a pattern, see if I need to make any adjustments, and I didn't spend money on fabric for my test, you know, my test make. I think actually some of this is pretty nice and I would wear this as a final garment. It is just really worth, I think, if someone says, hey, you know, I've got all this fabric that was in my grandma's house, like go through it, look through it. You might find something really nice. But I always wash everything first and then I will iron it, and sometimes when you iron it, you find the odor that you didn't know was there. Okay, that's all. I'm not gonna go back through everything, but just wanted to share. I found some treasures. Thanks for coming along with me on this ride. I hope you are having a great day wherever you are, and I will see you soon. Bye.